All right, hey everybody, welcome to Creative Coast. I'm your host Michael Sprouse on Radio Rehoboth 99.1 FM Community Radio. It's Monday, February 3rd. February already. Last week I was amazed. Our Sydney Arts was here. We had a great time and we were freaking out about the fact that the month was flying by. And here it is February, but it's the shortest month of the year, I believe. It's a leap year month, I believe. Anyway, I've got a very special guest here with me today. I'm very happy to have the one and only Ray Kurz. Mr. Cuvée Ray himself is here in the House of Sprouse. Welcome, Ray.
How are you? Good to be here.
I'm good, man. I'm good. So I know that there's a lot of things that we can talk about today. You've had a sort of a interesting transitional season, and I know that you want to address that, and we're going to talk about some plans that you may have that are coming into focus for the future and your ideas about wine and all the above. So welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
For people that need to be caught up.
Right.
You and your lovely wife, Deb, opened Cuvée Ray Wine Bar and Restaurant in downtown Rehoboth, right up the street.
Correct.
Was what?
In July of 2018.
July 2018.
July 12th, I believe, was our opening day, 2018.
Very popular. He, of course, was home of the original Sydney's. Then it had been through a couple of other incarnations at that point in time. But when you came back in, you gave it a whole new look and feel. It was about your passion for wine and your knowledge, your expertise in wine. And of course, you had some live music there, which was part of something that you were into as well. And it did well for a while.
It did. It was my dream to do something in the wine business. I mean, just a little history here. I had been interested in wine, more than interested. I was an attorney for 36 years. But during that whole time, I was also a serious wine collector, a student of wine. I took a bunch of wine courses, traveled to many, many wine regions. And I always knew that there'd come a point in my life when I would leave the law business and do something in the wine business. I lived in Northern Virginia at the time. Originally, I thought I was going to open up a winery or vineyard in Northern Virginia.
Literally grow your own grapes and make wine and all the above.
Exactly.
Right?
I had a slight foray into that where I bought grapes. Even while I was still a practicing attorney, I bought grapes.
For people that may not be completely familiar with that realm, when you say you bought grapes, you bought grapes to go plant, right?
No.
Okay.
I bought grapes to make wine out of. So what I did is I worked with a local winery. Mm-hmm. So I did not have a wine. I tried to be like a virtual winery, basically. I worked with a local winery who procured the grapes for me, and that's where we made the wine with a professional winemaker and all. And I made about 350 cases of wine under the label Social Cluster. Mm-hmm. was our wine, and I made about 350 cases. And we tried to sell some of it online. We opened up an online store. We participated in a few wine festivals where we sold some wine at those wine festivals. But it quickly became apparent that a virtual winery is not a viable business, frankly. So actually, I probably have about 200 of those 350 cases of wine.
Oh, hey. Holidays are coming.
Exactly. A lot of friends and family are getting lots and lots of wine continuously. So I moved on from that. I really did that just to really dip my toe into the wine business and learn a little bit about winemaking, learn more about winemaking and the wine business.
But you had already developed this passion before.
Oh, yeah. My passion for wine started about 35 years ago. Okay. In fact, I remember pretty distinctly when that came to be. Shortly after I was married in the early 80s, I lived in AU Park, American University Park in the District of Columbia. You lived in the district, so you know where that is. American University was offering adult education night wine classes, Introduction to Wine 101. And I took that course, and I just thought it was absolutely fascinating, just amazing, interesting, and fun. And I remember tasting my first red Burgundy. Didn't even know what these wines really were starting out. It was like a jaw-dropping experience for me.
Wow. Was it a whim?
I don't really remember. Honestly, I must have had some interest in wine for me to have decided to take. We took it with another couple. I must have had some interest that sparked me to take the course. So I tasted this wine. It was the aha moment. It was a red Burgundy. And I went out and bought 6 bottles of it. Put it in our basement. And that was the start of my wine collection. Within 2 years, I went back and found some old photographs. Within 2 years, my wife and I were on a wine tasting trip to Burgundy and then northern Italy back in the
So we really did just snowball into
it. it was just like that. And after that, I started studying wine seriously and collecting and traveling to different wine regions. Fast forward back to the Virginia thing, said, all right, a few years ago, I said, I'm going to try to acquire a winery or a vineyard. And I came so close. My wife and I went with a checkbook to buy this winery, and I took one more walk around the winery before writing the check. And I said, no, this just didn't feel right. Yeah. So we had a couple more forays. I became friendly with a winemaker in Northern Virginia. We were going to do something together. None of that ever worked out. And I remember driving home from work one day. I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and we had a house in South Bethany. And I remember driving down the GW Parkway home from work one day, just thinking, what am I going to do? I really feel like making a move now. It was about 2015 or 2016. It just hit me. I said, well, why don't we sell the house in Alexandria? I could leave my law business and let's move into our beach house in South Bethany and open up a wine bar out at the beach. And I came home, came in the front door, told my wife what I was thinking.
Here's what we're going to do next.
Well, I told her, and she gave it the 2 thumbs up. And within literally weeks, we were getting the house ready to put on the market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Tiffany, here's how I want to spend the rest of my days.
Yeah.
This is happening, so I'm right down the road.
Exactly. And we were both excited to do it. And that was, I think, late 2015. And then 2016, we ended up selling the house, moving to South Bethany, and took me about a year to find space for Cuvée Ray, then another year to renovate it, and then we opened up in July of 2018.
Well, so that was an ongoing. It wasn't let's move to the beach and then make a decision about what we're going to do. That was part of the purpose.
Yeah. Oh, that was why I came out to the beach, was to open up a wine bar. Yeah, and that was genesis of Cuvée Ray.
Okay. Hey, listen, we're going to take our first commercial break.
Okay.
But when we come back, we're going to talk more about this and a few other exciting things are going on. I'm sure everyone here is interested. Happy to have Ray here in the house. You're in Creative Coast. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'm your host, Michael Sprouse. We'll be right back. Hey folks, Michael Sprouse here. Just a quick note to say thanks for listening to this interview portion of Creative Coast on 99.1 FM Radio Rehoboth. Please feel free to listen every Monday between 5 p.m. and 7 when I host Creative Coast. It's a super 2 hours of fascinating and fun conversation with the movers and shakers from the vast arts and entertainment world here on Delmarva, including spotlight interviews with new talent, live music, and more. Plus, between 6 and 7 p.m., listen as I spin an hour of artistically selected tunes, including brand new releases and classic spins from all kinds of musical genres. And don't forget to follow and like Creative Coast with host Michael Sprouse on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Creative Coast Rehoboth. If there's something you think that needs to be on my radar, make sure and use hashtag House of Sprouse. Now, back to the show. All right, folks, welcome back to Creative Coast. I'm your host, Michael Sprouse. Have Cuvée Ray Kurz here in the House of Sprouse. Glad he's here, my friend. We're talking about his passion for wine and his great experience here in the business and some ideas of what he has moving forward. Right before we went to the break, Ray, you're just getting to the point where you just finished opening the Cuvée Ray restaurant wine bar.
Right, and I guess I should cut to the chase at the end first, and that is, as many people know, Cuvée Ray is up for sale right now.
Yeah.
It gives you time when you do something like that of reflection, and there are people make assumptions one way or the other about why you did this or that or why you're closing, and got a lot of nice notes on that from people, a lot of nice emails and all, but a lot goes into it. I remember when we opened Cuvée Ray, it was so exciting. I was just so excited to be doing this, be realizing my dream, opening a wine bar. That was, and I think there might have been a couple other ventures in the past. Mm-hmm. But in any event, as I said, my passion was all around wine, and my focus in opening Cuvée Ray was around wine. And we opened this beautiful, amazing, gourmet kind of restaurant, 130-seat restaurant that we got a lot of accolades and great reviews, amazing reviews. But it got to be kind of a little bit off of what my original vision was, frankly. My original vision was, to focus on the kind of the wine bar aspect of things. And we ended up being this big full-service, amazing restaurant. We stayed at it for a year and a half or so.
You had mentioned in the past, when you went in, your initial goal was to have a wine bar, but what you ended up with was this full throttle restaurant that demanded it was a different responsibility, I think.
I think that's right. I mean, everyone who knew me knew that eventually I was going to do something in the wine business. 20 years, people knew that that's where I'd end up. My colleagues at work and my law business, everyone knew I was going to end up in the wine business one way or another. I don't think anyone ever heard me say, I want to be a restaurateur.
Sure, yeah.
And frankly, I think, thinking about things, in order to be successful in this business, in the restaurant business, you have to really want to be, it's got to be your passion. Like my passion was for wine, your passion has to be, I want to be the world's best restaurateur. And that's something it's got to be your life's dream.
Sure.
So two, my life's dream was to do something with wine, which we did. It was very fulfilling. And I got to say, the whole Cuvée Ray experience for me was an absolute amazing one. I really enjoyed so many aspects of it. But there's other things, like I said, that go into it. I got a little bit off of the path that I wanted to focus on. The focus was wine for me. But like I said, it was an amazing experience that I really enjoyed. I met a lot of amazing, wonderful people.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, you must have really just expanded your circle, your scope of influence, or the people that you were meeting, and you were meeting musicians, you're meeting people in the wine business, you're meeting people in the food business.
That was the best part of it, I think. It always is. I mean, when I look back on my law business, I don't look back and say I won this case or did this or did that. I think about the people that I worked with and maybe helped along the way, younger lawyers. And same thing with this. I mean, the people, our employees at Cuvée Ray were all amazing. They were great people. I loved seeing them every day. I loved working with younger people, and there was a lot of young people. Like you said, all the distributors, the wine distributors, I loved sitting down with them and talking about wine. And obviously our customers. That was probably one of the most amazing, fulfilling experiences, was sharing my I did achieve a part of my goal. In fact, I achieved my goal in the sense that we were recognized for being an amazing place to have wine, with an amazing array of wines, the ability to have every wine by the glass, which is also a dream of mine, to just share as much, as many different kinds of wine with people as possible. And that interaction with people about wine on a daily basis, that was the most fulfilling aspect of it.
You must have had opportunity where your knowledge also was increased with wine.
That's one of the things I love about studying wine and being a student of wine. If you want to be, you're essentially a perpetual student of wine, because there's an infinite amount to learn. I mean, I've talked to master sommeliers, and they still say they're on their wine journey. And so it's a journey that you're always on. And no question, when you're dealing with it in a professional setting every day, you learn a lot. So that also was a great aspect of it. Learning more and more about wines, tasting some different wines, learning, I think one of the things I focused on, frankly, that I personally wasn't focused on for most of my life, was value, having value for the customer, finding value wines that would, over-deliver for the price. And I learned a lot about how to find those wines. And now when I go into a restaurant myself, I'm more able to find value on wine lists. It's easy to go on a wine list and pick a fancy wine with a great reputation, but it's fun to find those hidden gems, and that's one of the things that we like to provide, and that I find myself doing now when I'm in a restaurant.
When you and I were conversing a few days ago, you talked about the fact that sometimes when you're in restaurants now and you see that an inexpensive wine option, and you, based upon your experience, are able to say, well, you get a much better glass of wine at the same price point if you would just do this, rather than just go for, I don't know what the term is, the easiest, sort of cheapest option.
Exactly. I mean, value also just isn't always about the cheapest option. It's about over-delivering for the price. And it could be a $6 glass of wine or a $60 glass of wine. Each one could deliver value if it over-delivers for what you're getting, price-wise.
I had never really thought about it like that until you mentioned it. I was like, oh, that's sort of interesting. If I were in the restaurant business or if I were a professional that needed to make those decisions, that would be, I would like to have the ability to know someone that could come in and say, no, the wine you want to be serving is this, and you're still going to be in the same, you're going to be saving the same amount of money, et cetera, right?
Exactly. It bothered me when I opened Cuvée Ray. I always didn't like going into restaurants where the house wines would be not very good, just to offer them at a good price point. And what I learned is for that same price point, you can find exciting, amazing, fresh, wonderful wines. There's no excuse for a restaurant, I don't think, to have to offer mediocre wines or, not even quite mediocre in some places, just to reach a particular price point. Because you can find those gems at every price point.
Yeah, well, if you're trained and so on, that's your thing, which is great. I mean, that's one of the, we'll talk about more of that, later on in the hour, but, you've developed that knowledge base that the average, I'm not going to be able to go in and say, hey, that's probably a good deal on that wine, because I just don't have your knowledge base. So it's good that you have that expertise, sense that people were dialoguing with you when you had the restaurant, because I think a lot of people learned a lot from you as well.
I hope so. I mean, it was like I said, that was one of the most fun things about the restaurant was talking to people about wine and having them try different wines and try something new. A lot of people, surprised me how many people were open to trying new things. A lot of people wanted to try new things, and they'd come in sometimes and say, hey, Ray, what do you have that I haven't had before that you think I'd like to try? And that was fun.
One of the things that I would notice at the times that I would go with some friends or visit, or I'd meet some friends there for a drink or something, and sometimes the person I'm meeting, who I know maybe did not have a vast knowledge of wine, maybe they had some, but they would say, hey, Ray suggested this the other day and was really good, and it's become like their new favorite wine, and they were telling other people at the bar, sharing their experience. So I think, that's a really connective thing.
It was a connective thing, and, it really started more and more people at the bar, sitting at the bar, would have conversations across the corner of the bar to other people in the bar. I loved seeing that as well. When complete strangers or people didn't really know each other, because there was a common topic, you could talk about wine, which is easy to talk about. It's not political. It's easy to
exactly
safe topic to talk about. And so strangers would be either sitting next to each other or close by in the bar and just start talking about, their wine experiences and sharing stories and the like. I have to say, you also learn from your customers, from the people in the restaurant. A lot of people came to me and said, have you tried this? And they did, and I might not have tried that particular wine. And there were a few wines that I brought into the restaurant because of people's suggestions.
Oh,
yeah, people
nice.
who had a lot of good suggestions. A lot of people that came to the restaurant did have an interest in wine and loved hearing what they had to say about some of their favorites.
Right on. Well, listen, we're going to take another quick break here, but don't go anywhere, folks. I got Cuvée Ray here in the House of Sprouse on Creative Coast on Radio Rehoboth 991 FM. It's enlightening, indeed, without a doubt, whether you have grapes or not. Anyway, folks, we'll be right back. I'm your host, Michael Sprouse. Don't go anywhere. Hey folks, Michael Sprouse here. Just a quick note to say thanks for listening to this interview portion of Creative Coast on 99.1 FM Radio Rehoboth. Please feel free to listen every Monday between 5 p.m. and 7 when I host Creative Coast. It's a super 2 hours of fascinating and fun conversation with the movers and shakers from the vast arts and entertainment world here on Delmarva, including spotlight interviews with new talent, live music, and more. Plus, between 6 and 7 p.m., listen as I spin an hour of artistically selected tunes, including brand new releases and classic spins from all kinds of musical genres. And don't forget to follow and like Creative Coast with host Michael Sprouse on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Creative Coast Rehoboth. If there's something you think that needs to be on my radar, make sure and use hashtag House of Sprouse. Now, back to the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to Creative Coast. I'm your host, Michael Sprouse. It is Monday, February 3rd. I got my friend Cuvée Ray here in the House of Sprouse. How's it going, Ray?
It's going good. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, I am too. We're having a good time. It's fun. One of the things I like about radio is just sitting down with friends and just talking about stuff.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great for me. I'm enjoying kind of reliving the Cuvée Ray experience.
Sure.
Thinking about things. It's fun. I feel really, really, really good about things. Before the break, I was talking about, some of the things I really loved about having Cuvée Ray. And one of the things, the big part of it, was another passion of mine was music. And I always try to marry, I always think music and wine have a special relationship. And that was another really, really amazing part of Cuvée Ray. I hooked up with Sydney Arts early, before I opened the restaurant. And she is the one that guided the whole music program at Cuvée Ray. She was amazing to work with. She did an amazing job. And that was fun to deal with the musicians.
Sure, yeah. Because that was a first for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. And they were great people. They really were great.
Yeah.
I love that. I love, talking with them because, again, music is my passion. As you know, we have, I actually do this special kind of wine tasting called Vintunes that actually, like you would pair food and wine, I pair music and wine and match specific songs.
And people love those. I mean, you did some of them outside of the restaurant too, and people were thrilled by it.
It's because it's something that people have never experienced before. It was something kind of different. It is very different. Where, like I said, a Vintunes tasting might be I'll play 5 songs, and I will have prior to the tasting I will have matched 5 songs with 5 wines, and then we'll do the wine tasting. I play the music. I try to choose songs that people are familiar with.
Like, what would an example be, if you can think of one?
So I remember one of the great classic pairings would be some sort of sparkling wine or champagne, and Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Just think about that. And that's kind of the concept is, on the one hand, you might have a song like Here Comes the Sun. It's a
bubbly, crispy,
exactly.
The sun's rising, the sun's coming out. Yeah.
And that's very different than, let's say, a Cabernet. And if I played 2 songs for you and gave you a glass of champagne and a glass of big California Cabernet, and I played Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple, and Here Comes the Sun, you'll know, intuitively know which goes with which. It was a lot more to it than that, a little more complexities to the songs.
But you were helping people to what I liked about that, and the first time I'd ever seen or experienced anything like that was when you were introducing people to that way of thinking. You're getting them to think beyond just a taste experience with wine.
Well, that's true. I mean, all of our senses kind of interact. Everything around us, music, the colors of wine, you have expectations. When you see red wine, it's going to taste a certain way. If you taste wine completely blind and don't even know if it's red or white, I've heard from some kind of experts who've taken these really high-level wine courses where you are blindfolded and don't know if you have a red wine or a white wine. They actually say that it's sometimes difficult without seeing it to tell them apart.
Interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting.
So all your senses, work together. I always thought that if you find the right music and wine matches, like finding food and wine matches, there's just a synergy that goes together, and it works.
Is it a presentation? I mean, in the sense of if you were doing a Vintunes demonstration, what would you call it?
I just call it a Vintunes wine tasting where everyone, it's audience participation. The fun part of it is we'll taste 5 wines throughout the course of the tasting, and we'll talk about the wines as you would in a normal wine tasting. But you'll also be thinking about aspects of wine and music that are in common. Wine and music both have a rhythm. They have high notes and low notes. They have dissonance and consonance. They have major chords and minor chords. And if you start focusing on it, you can kind of see what the connection is. And basically, at the end of the wine tasting, everyone gets to vote on which wines they think go with which songs. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And it's amazing that there is a fair amount of consensus, especially if you get bigger groups of people. Some of them are pretty close in some ways. There is a fair amount of consensus in the wine and music pairing.
Interesting.
It's fun.
So, and that's a portable thing. You can go somewhere and do that, right? Really, any place.
I have done it. Yeah. In fact, I started doing it when I've been doing those kinds of wine tastings for maybe, I'm going to say, close to 10 years. And I started the first one I ever did publicly. I mean, privately, I found myself describing wine sometimes in musical terms, and that's what got me thinking about the connection between wine and music. I ended up doing some wine tastings in people's homes as there were charity events where they would bid on either a silent auction or something for the Vintunes wine tasting, and I'd go to their home and bring all the equipment, bring the music, the speakers, and set it all up, and do Vintunes wine tastings at people's houses. I've done Vintunes wine dinners at people's, where you combine wine and food pairings, and then wine and music pairings throughout the dinner.
Now, would that be, I'm just sort of thinking out loud, if someone said, oh, I'd like to have that experience here, can we work with this chef that they like? And you could make that a customizable thing.
That is kind of where I think I'm headed now in my continued wine life that I want to pursue.
Interesting.
I'm going to be trying to do things, expressing myself, sharing my passion with wine, and finding different avenues to do that. And one of those avenues will be doing private wine dinners, wine tastings, where I could do that in people's homes. We can do it in a community center, a clubhouse in a community, things like that. But that's one of the things that I would like to be doing, that just it goes to the core of what I love to do.
Sure. Well, it seems like you've already started sort of moving everything that's sort of evolving and pushing into that direction anyway, which is great. And we've had this discussion before. I think that even though it was a short amount of time, relatively, that you had in the restaurant, let's just say what
I expected. Right?
But you did really make a mark, and I think you established very strong branding as the wine aficionado, the expert. I'm not quite sure what the right terminology you prefer or what that would be, but yeah, you actually have official titles, I imagine, don't you?
Yeah, I have gotten sommelier certification. I've gotten a certified specialist of wine by the Society of Wine Educators. I've got some other things that I've done along the way. I was thinking about that. I don't think anyone would ever say they're an expert in wine, even people that I consider to be quote-unquote experts, like a master of wine, because there's always so much to know that you don't know. I always look back, like 5 years ago, I would have thought that I knew so much about wine, or 10 years ago, I said, I really know a lot about wine. And now I look back and say, I really didn't know that much. And I'm sure I'll look back now, I think I know a fair amount about wine, but I know I'll look back 10 years from now and say, boy, I've learned a lot more since, since 10
Sounds
years ago.
very zen, that whole process.
It's great. Well, like I said, there's just an infinite amount to learn, because there's new wine regions popping up, and, new focuses on different kinds of varietals. And,
Well, speaking of wine region, and I'm just throwing this out there because we'll be going to break here. And do you ever see that Delaware would become, Virginia has developed its own wine region-esque type of mid-Atlantic following.
Right.
And it seems very similar geographically between, Delaware, Virginia, Delmarva, et cetera. Do you ever see that happening here?
It's interesting. I've always been surprised. First of all, wine is produced in all 50 states.
We have Nassau Valley Vineyard, of course, right here.
We have Nassau Valley
Vineyard. Shout out
to
Peggy and Eddie.
Yeah, and I think in all of Delaware, there are only 4 or 5 vineyards in the whole state, which is amazing.
It's the second smallest.
It's true, but there's still, it is true, but it's still, I honestly, I have to say, I don't know the details of the soil types and things like that to know if it. My guess is yes, there's a lot of room for growth. There are orchards where there are orchards. A lot of times you find vineyards.
Sure.
So I think it's just a matter of having an interest, having, it's a trial and error thing to a certain extent, finding out which varieties grow best in different regions. I remember tasting Virginia wine 30 years ago, and it was, by and large, it was undrinkable. A lot of it was awful. And it's since that time now that Virginia wines are award-winning wines, and there's I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of wineries and vineyards in Virginia. So that they really grew
And that is
up.
a relatively short amount of time that happened.
Absolutely. And it just exploded over the last 10 or 15 years. So I do think, there's no reason to think that Delaware couldn't grow its wine growing
Interesting.
business.
The huge explosion of interest and desire in culinary options here, as we have here in Lewis, Rehoboth, in this area, the restaurants, there's so many, and they're on people's radar. It seems that wine would just follow. You would think that is going to be a growing business.
I think either way, whether it's homegrown or otherwise, I think for exactly the reason that you state, that Delaware is developing a wine culture more than it, maybe more than it historically had, because of the fine culinary experiences, like you said, fine wine, great wines follow, the food.
I would say that you're definitely part of that beginning of the wine culture here.
Well, I'd like to be.
It makes sense to me.
I'd like to be. And, that's something, like I said, moving forward, I would like to continue to share my passion for wine. I'm going to be finding other avenues to do that.
Right on. In fact, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that, which I'm excited to do. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. Got Cuvée Ray in the house of Sprouse. You're on Creative Coast. Hey folks, Michael Sprouse here. Just a quick note to say thanks for listening to this interview portion of Creative Coast on 99.1 FM Radio Rehoboth. Please feel free to listen every Monday between 5 p.m. and 7 when I host Creative Coast. It's a super 2 hours of fascinating and fun conversation with the movers and shakers from the vast arts and entertainment world here on Delmarva, including spotlight interviews with new talent, live music, and more. Plus, between 6 and 7 p.m., listen as I spin an hour of artistically selected tunes, including brand new releases and classic spins from all kinds of musical genres. And don't forget to follow and like Creative Coast with host Michael Sprouse on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Creative Coast Rehoboth. If there's something you think that needs to be on my radar, make sure and use hashtag House of Sprouse. Now, back to the show. Welcome back, everybody. I am your host, Michael Sprouse. Welcome to Creative Coast. I got Cuvée Ray here in the house. Ray Kurz. Glad you're back, man. This hour is flying by.
It is flying by. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's funny. Every time I've guests, often they're like, what are we going to talk about for an hour? I'm like, trust me, it'll be easy to do.
Yeah, the time is flying.
Absolutely flies by. So right before we came back to the break, you were talking about a lot of the great experiences that you had, on all the many different levels of connection to the restaurant. But now you want to sort of move to the next level of bringing that passion out there to the public. And you've got some pretty interesting ideas of how you're going to make that happen.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's what I really want to focus on, is finding new vehicles and ways to share my passion for wine with people. And like I said, I'm hoping to do wine tastings and wine dinners. I'm hoping possibly to consult with restaurants and helping anyone who's interested with their wine programs and wine training and things like that. So it's going to be multifaceted, I think, where, how I'm going to approach this. It's going to be a component that has to do with directly with people, and hopefully some component of it that will have to do with the hospitality trade. But one thing I've really enjoyed doing, and I did it in conjunction with Cuvée Ray, was, as you've seen, you helped me with them and edited them and helped me get them out there, were the Cuvée Ray Unplugged blogs.
Sure, yeah.
And I want to continue to do that. It was fun to be able to express myself through the writing. I enjoyed it. I tried to keep it light and fun.
And they were very enjoyable.
I really enjoyed that. And I think something that we've talked about is potentially, moving into the video realm. With something where I'm not an expert on video or production or things like that, but you are. And I know we've talked about possibly doing something together. Exactly. So we've talked, we've talked a little bit, you and I, about doing something together, about trying to get out and do some video. Not exactly sure what form it would take. It's something we probably need.
I think it would be entertaining and fun and informative.
It's got to be, because wine should be fun. Mm-hmm. It's not something to be ponderous and heavy and taken too seriously. There's a serious side to it, but if you focus on that, you take the joy out of it. For me. So absolutely, the vision is to do something where we do these fun videos, incorporate wine tasting into the video somehow, and talk with different people about wine.
Yeah, just do a wine tasting on camera with a couple of fun friends and
like interesting people drinking wine.
Yeah, that's what it's always about, right? Well, you brought up a good point, and you touched upon a point that makes a lot of sense to me, and this is also a continuation from what we spoke about before we went to the break. You use the term wine culture. And what I think is very interesting about here in Delmarva, there's already a craft beer culture. That's huge.
Huge.
Huge. And everyone's part of it. They love it. They know it. And what you start finding out are people that know, I can get this type of beer here. People know more about beer now than they really ever did in the past. Microbrewery craft beer. I could see that happening with wine. I see this area is ready for something like that. And I see you as the fellow that's sort of taking the helm of that, moving forward in that direction.
I'd like to contribute to that. That's part of what like I said, I have such a passion for it, and I'd like to contribute to, stoking people's interest in wine. Whether your wine interest is just you love this big oaky California Chardonnay and that's what you love, that's great. Come in and enjoy a glass of that. Maybe try something else once in a while. But there's so many different levels that people enjoy wine at. You don't have to be immersed in it or become an aficionado of wine to get a lot out of it and to enjoy it. And I think you're right. I think along with the growth of the culinary culture that there is here, and kind of sophisticated culinary culture developing in this area, I think going along with that is a wine culture. And I think I'd like to contribute to that and keep it fun. And
well, I think you already have. So I think you're just continuing. You've already sort of segued onto that highway of starting this wine culture. It just makes sense to me because you said there's already a beer culture that's well established. And there's sort of a bourbon culture too, actually.
There is actually. Maybe it's just there's an alcohol culture.
That's all it is.
But and like I said, the key is keeping it fun and light. I think you and I, for the next few weeks, could maybe talk a little bit more about how we're going to do this.
I agree without a doubt. We've already had a little preliminary conversation about it, but I think it would definitely involve us putting together some fun videos, and certainly anyone that is familiar with us, they've seen us before. We're no strangers to camera and that type of media. So I think it's also a very good way to reach people. Part of developing that knowledge base is getting people to get comfortable, going out of their home and going out to a place where they can meet like-minded people and have these experiences, and also being open to learning new things.
I was pleasantly surprised to see how people were interested in learning and open to new things and trying new things. Loved interacting with people at Cuvée Ray and through this project that we have going. It's another way of staying connected with people. That's one of the fun things about it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think, and you and I had mentioned this before too, that sometimes in the restaurant business, if a restaurant closes for a variety of reasons, it's sort of the end of the story and people move on, and there's a big cloud of talk for a little bit and then it's gone and forgotten. But that's not the case here.
No, that's right. And I hope to continue to keep things rolling, basically. And I someday I hope to look back and say that Cuvée Ray, the restaurant, was really a launching pad for other interesting endeavors that I'll be doing in the wine world.
It has that feel to it, not a closing thing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, right?
And that's how I feel about it. I mean, people come up to me and say, "Oh, so sorry to hear." I was sorry to see that go in some respects, and I understand, why people feel that way. But overall, I feel really, really good about what I'm going to be doing next.
Excellent.
And the future.
Being able to have let's say, an intimate fun party in your home, that you're there and they brought in the wine expert, maybe I'm there and we're doing some fun entertaining. That sounds like a lot of fun to me.
That would be fun. That's where I hope to go next. And, you and I also talked about the possibility of doing potentially some events, some wine-related events and things like that we can do together, is bringing the wine community together. There are a lot of people that I met that are super into wine or casually into wine but just have an interest, and just bringing them together all in one place to do some fun things with wine and wine tasting.
Sure. Between now and let's say this is my opinion, the next 15 years is a really key time to do this, because we live, without a doubt, the 55 plus active community is a thing. It's here to stay, and Delmarva. And these people are looking for these experiences, and they're coming here from larger metropolitan areas where that's something that they're familiar with, and they're like, "Oh, can't we do that here?" And I think that's something that you can help to bring to reality.
I hope so. And I've met, again, at Cuvée Ray, I met a lot of people just of the type that you're talking about. I remember I met this young couple. I was talking to them when they were looking for their place in Delaware, when they bought their place in Delaware, after they bought their place in Delaware. And I went through the whole thing with them, and they continued to come to Cuvée Ray, and they were really enjoyed wine tasting and tasting different things. But I think you're right on the mark with that. I've met so many people that fit into that category, people who moved down from further north in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and New York and other places. They're interested, they're at the time in their lives where they want to do fun things.
Sure,
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at this time in my life. I mean, I was, like I said, a practicing lawyer for 36 years, which I loved. I mean, I loved every minute of it. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't love it. And now I'm doing something else that I love, and that's what we should all be doing, because every day is precious.
Right on. There you go. We should also mention that your website, CuvéeRay.com, is still and will continue to be, it's an evolutionary process as well. So it's going to start a transition from the restaurant focus to these other new elements of what you're doing professionally.
Right. Yeah, we're going to have to redo the website, and I've already got some thoughts on how we want to do that. But that's also going to be a platform where people can see what we're offering and what's going on.
Sure.
I think I'm obviously going to keep the name Cuvée Ray.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I think I'm associated with, enjoy.
Yeah.
So,
and let's people, before we end this hour, let's let them know that the website is CuvéeRay.com, right. CUV as in Victor, EERAY.com. And of course on Facebook, you have a pretty good social media presence too.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not like a social media person, and I need people to help me with that. And you're one of the people that have helped me with that, and I'm counting on you to continue to help me with that.
But that's how people can get in touch with you,
absolutely.
because that's an important thing. So.
Right, and honestly, they could also email me at Ray at Cuvée Ray.
Oh, that's Ray at CuvéeRay.com.
Yeah. So yep.
All right. Well, listen, we have to go. The hour's up, my friend.
All right.
Can you believe
that went unbelievably fast.
Sure did.
Unbelievably
I'm going to be sticking around for another hour. I'm going to be spinning some tunes. Maybe I can get Ray to stick around. You never know. He's always the music. I'm going to have you here for music one day.
We should do that.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, and thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you.
I really
enjoyed it. And honestly, I really look forward to working with you.
Oh, I am too. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be very exciting. Hey, folks, don't go anywhere. We've got an hour of music coming up. I'm your host, Michael Sprouse. You're on Creative Coast.